Alright, here I'm going to talk about individualist. The idea of having your individuality built up so that you personally realize your self-worth, realize what you yourself are capable of, and to realize that you are not able to be completely compared or grouped with another group of people, that you yourself have your own set of abilities that you're able to do. I think that is something that is extremely important to create a working society, one that no one is ever going to compare themselves to and the next carpenter. A carpenter won't compare themselves to the next carpenter. They know they're better at something than they are. They know they're worse at something that they are. Not meaning that they shouldn't try and improve upon the previous skills, but I think that is something that right from the get-go, right from the education system, right from kindergarten, that they should be teaching in there. That they themselves can set up their own opinion on it, not based on what the media is saying, not on that, but their own take to build up their individuality so that they themselves can be people, better people, people that aren't going to try and aren't going to feel intimidated by the people around them who might have a set of abilities that are superior to them, and they're going to feel bad that they are not a good guitarist, but they'll focus more on the fact that they're good um, at programming or something. You know what I mean? So to build that up so people understand that completely, that everyone has something they're good at, and that we should not be like down about the fact that we aren't good at something when someone else is, and not feel intimidated by that, and we shouldn't put pressure on someone who feels bad about that, which I found happens quite frequently when you um, are in school or in groups. You feel competitive, and when you are not as good as that person, it can either push you to try harder, or it's going to make you give up on that, and it will hurt your self-esteem, so that you're ultimately you could end up just useless to society. And I think it's very important to build that up so people realize what they're really worth. The idea of one language. This might not sit well because with some people, because they go, "Whoa, what one language?" Um, at the moment, I'd probably say English because most of the world is already trying to learn that. But I think English is a very flawed language, that too much of what is said can be left up to interpretation. There's not too much rock solid um, like meanings. There is rock solid, but it can be taken differently, and the language itself transforms and evolves and changes, which you can't stop. You can't stop the language from evolving, but I think that it would just benefit the world or that country as a whole to only promote one language in the in public, so that people in public only speak one language, so that everyone never has to feel that someone's talking behind their back. No one ever has to feel that. They don't have to feel out of the loop unit. They just feel like they're part of a bigger group. If everyone's speaking the same language, everyone's sort of having the same culture, everyone's, um, you know, everyone has different backgrounds, but everyone's gonna then have one common thing. They're all gonna be able to communicate. I think communication is a big thing. And I think that by having multiple languages in a country, you hurt that communication. You hurt the ability to communicate. And I think it's frustrating, and I think it's anti-productive, and I think it could destroy the entire nation because of the lack of communication. Um, so I think that's my idea on um, that language. But at the same time, um, they should still promote a second language so you don't lose your previous culture, because poetry isn't going to sound the same if you translate it into another language. The books are going to sound funny or be lost an idea when you transfer between languages. And I just think that all writing should be done in one language now, so that the idea won't be lost when it's done. Um, this is, I bet, is something that some people would be against. But the choice of the language, I don't really care which language would be. If tomorrow they said everyone's going to speak Turkish, and that's what the whole world's going to speak, it's one language, I would be alright to learn that because I think that would help us. I think that developing the nation's culture is a very important thing to set up what that nation will believe in, um, what they identify themselves by, to make it more rock solid. I find that living in Canada, there's a lot of diversity in culture here and what one believes, but and very little that you can identify yourself by in this country. And I would expect that many other countries might be having this problem because we aren't all Christians anymore in North America. We aren't all in Canada. We aren't all hockey loving. Whatever. We aren't those things. We aren't all those things. We can't recognize ourselves just by our health care and whatever. But I think that it'd be very important for to set up campaigns for bringing in what that country believes. You know, what just to set what the country values, what they think. And I think right now there's so much disagreement and so much diversity on these things, what someone values, especially in the Western world, that it's bad. It's a bad idea to have that much diversity because then you're all fighting with each other on what you think. But if you guys can all have one set of solid things that everyone goes for and everyone believes in, you're going to unite that. As well as a good way I would think to do this would be to make sure you promote your artists, your athletes, and your past leaders and accomplishments. Make sure that everyone knows that as this nation, as what this set of ideas that you guys have, you guys brought forth because you believe in the same ideas that these people believed in. You are now bringing the world forward. Those accomplished that they completed, you're one and the same. You are the same as them because you're a benefit of them. You're bringing forward those goals. Wages and minimum wage, I think, should be completely reflective of the cost of living and inflation and skill sets. That's it, nothing else. I think wages should constantly always be at what the minimum wage should always be at the minimum cost of living, what that is, so that everyone who works is able to live. I think that's an extremely important thing. I think everyone who has a job should be able to live on that money. I think that there is enough work out there that this should be completely possible to do this. I think some of these companies are multi-billion-dollar companies, so you can't tell me they can't afford it and still expand. And then so the wage should always sit there, and then also everyone's wage should increase with the rate of inflation. So when things go up, they should get paid more. They should just get that so that they can always maintain what their constant style of living is. I think that, and then it keeps everything's going to be constant price, making it a very more competitive market because they know if they charge more, they have to pay more. So they know that would be better for them to sell it for less and sell more of it. So I think that making wages like that, regulating wages in that manner, would make the market far more competitive, making it so that everyone's way of life could improve and become better. I think also with the wages, though, taxes go very hand in hand with that. I think that the corporation is now paying more money to these people because the cost of living is higher than what minimum wage is in most places. I think that they should then have tax breaks for these things. I think these companies should when they're paying more, they should pay less taxes. I think that they should get those so that they're paying less money. But then it falls upon the individual to pay more taxes. But then also, um, so that, yeah. And then there's military um, and forces like that. My ideas on this are that your military should be more for defending your country, not going out and killing and conquering and all of those things. Sometimes it's for defending your own nation, but war is, I think, is a very unnecessary thing. But I don't think it's unimportant to have an armed military force. But um, I don't think we always need an on-call full 300,000 people military force or whatever, however many people. I think that it would be more more beneficial to have it so that everyone in the entire country receives basic training, learns how to fire a gun properly, learns how to fight, defend, strategize. They learn this, basic training. Everyone's given this, and if they decide that they disagree with that sort of thing, with fighting with that, they can do something where they go and instead of learning how to fight, to say, or defend, say they're completely against that, say then they have to go take a basic first aid sort of course for military so that they could be that, or they can go and do like a relief effort training thing, and then they have to actually physically go out and give relief to these countries and go donate their time, and they do training beforehand and then go out and do this, and then but the military, I don't think if you learn how to fight you shouldn't be required to go out and fight a war, and you should never have to be subject to a draft, but you should always, if the country that you live in ever falls under attack, then you're there to defend, and you already can fight and you can strategize. And I think this is very important too, because it would make it so that the government knows that it has an entire armed force that's well trained, that can strategize, that if this government ever does get to a point where it is taking more authority or having more, or doing more than the people really want, and taking liberties that it shouldn't have, and the government is actually moving as an individual group that's looking after itself and not a group, a bunch of people that are looking after the greater good of everyone, and that aren't just there to ensure that the systems that they've set up stay running, that the projects, roads are maintained. If the government ever takes a step into like actually trying to control someone's life, and the people aren't for this, what the government's proposing, they can strategize and militarize instantly against this government. And I think that would be an extremely important thing to have that. And the government would probably double think or rethink anytime that they were going to do anything like this, because they would know that every person in the country, if they really do anything, the entire country can militarize against them and go to fight against this idea. So in itself, it protects the country as well as it protects the country from itself. And I think that would be a very important thing and idea to have, as well as it's just fantastic. I think that'd be key to it. And then the government would have to pay very little. Like it would cost very little to have these camps set up for these people. They wouldn't have to have an ongoing full military. They would have to have a small military going all the time, of course. But they could put way less money into it, and then they could take this money that they're saving from the military and put that into the post-secondary, and say that, towards post-secondary.